Good.
Is it just Brian that's here by Zoom?
I think so. Yep. Right. I think we're recording. Welcome. My name is Sonia. I'm a member of the Orono Town Council and was elected to serve as Town Council's liaison to this group, which does not mean that I'm the chair of this group. This group is empowered to sort of select its own way of doing leadership and sort of methods of being together and sharing meetings and so on and so forth. But for the purposes of kicking things off today, I've looked at the agenda in advance and prepared to kind of lightly facilitate us as needed in the direction of, you know, being together today. How does that sound? Great. So starting right off, we've got some welcome and introductions. And Sophie, who's our town manager, did you want to say anything by way of welcome before we begin introductions? Or
I welcome everybody here. Thank you for giving your time and your talent to this effort. I really had not prepared anything because I think the intent was for me to take notes and listen and add a voice if needed.
Great. All right.
Thank you for scheduling us.
Totally.
Yeah.
So really excited to see Orono kick off its inaugural meeting of an ongoing diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging committee. There was an ad hoc temporary DEI committee a couple of years ago that sort of thought about, did a study and a survey of what some opportunities were in the town of Orono to do more on DEI issues. And their number one recommendation was, well, it would be wonderful to have an ongoing committee. And so that is what this is. We're coming together as an ongoing committee with an opportunity to build. So the charge that the town council created was suggesting about 10 to 12 members ultimately. And the town council sort of decided to seat about half that number as a start, with the hope that you all would help us sort of grow this group and help it become what it shall be. And so it's kind of a nice open-ended beginning that we're at. And I'm really grateful to each of you for being part of the creation of it. So let's go around and share our name, our pronouns, if we would like to share that. Where we live, I think most, perhaps all of us live within the town of Orono, but some of us might live out of town and, you know, consider ourselves community members here for other reasons. A little bit about why we were interested in serving on this committee, and maybe like one fun thing. Does anyone have kind of a fun icebreaker prompt for us that you want to throw in the mix? How about like favorite Circle K snack? Is something we were chatting about earlier. I could start. I'm Sonia. I use she, her pronouns. I live out at the corner of Forest and Stillwater by the roundabout. Really happy to see this committee come into being because I do think that it is a wonderful thing to be, as a town, sort of reflecting on who ends up in the room where decisions are made and what voices are we potentially missing out on. And so how can we create a more inclusive and welcoming culture on the town council, and how can we bring more people into conversations about how to do that? My favorite snack to get at Circle K next door is a Snickers bar paired with an orange juice. I'll pass it to Doug.
Okay.
You're looking at me funny, Carlos.
Doug Johnson. Let's see, where do I start? I've been in Orono for quite a long time, since 1989. And I was director of the counseling center. I worked there as a psychologist, but then I became the director. And I've been interested in, well, back in those days when I first came there in 1990, I started a multicultural seminar. The word was multicultural back then. It was and since then have been very involved in really promoting anti-racist work and DEI education for the interns that we had at the counseling center. And that training continues today. So I've been deeply involved in that for a long period of time. I do live in Orono. I live on Forest Avenue, about halfway to the interstate. I have a couple other interests. My daughter is a disabled adult who lives in the community. You've probably all seen her walking. So I'm very sensitive to those kinds of issues too, in terms of disability awareness. And now that I'm of this age and I'm recently retired, I'm interested in helping the elderly population. I know there's a lot of lonely elderly people also in the community. And so have been an advocate and a supporter of people of color and people of diverse backgrounds at the counseling center all of these years. So continue to be interested in that. In fact, just came back from a conference of Northeast Counseling Center directors and had a fabulous presentation from a guy at Boston College on how the trauma that racism has caused. So continue to be interested in those things. What else was I supposed to do?
Favorite snack?
I don't go there for snacks.
Oh, okay. That's all right. That's a viable answer too.
I get gas there.
Perfect. Malcolm, do you want to jump?
I'll go next. Yeah. And did we lose Brian Pittman from
Brian showed up here in person.
Brian.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm Malcolm Himshoot. I by he, him.
Left that out. I go by he, him also.
And see, I have about 3 years in Orono, in Maine, in New England. Moved with my family here for the reason of serving the Church of Universal Fellowship as co-pastor with my wife, Mariah Hayden. So that's one way that I've gotten to know the community is through people of every age and variety of identities who are in the church. But another way I've gotten to know the community was in 2021 when they had an ad hoc DEI committee from the town of Orono. I was on that group and we did a survey which had like hundreds of responses, and it was kind of interesting to look at all the data, language data and religion data, sexuality and gender, as much as people wanted to say that. And so it felt, and socioeconomic data. So it was kind of something that I wanted to be able to follow up on. So it looks like in terms of the continuity from 2021 to now, that I'll be able to bring that on behalf of the group. What else? Okay, in other places that I've lived, it was really important to pick up with, for me to pick up with white work as a white person. So different contexts, that looks different, but whether it was immigrant justice or community benefit from economic development or anti-Blackness in the urban places that I've lived. Also looking at Indigenous sovereignty recognition now that I live in Maine, and inclusion and access as disabilities issues, and language and culture recognition. But probably the one thing that has gotten me onto groups like this for 30 years now is my identity as a trans person, an openly identified trans man. So as clergy, as Christian and trans, the intersection of religion and LGBTQ issues is a dialogue that I continue to foster in gender education. It's at the crux of those dialogues for a long time now. Okay, that's enough about me, but I do have a favorite snack when I cannot resist. I get Reese's peanut butter cups at Circle K.
Hello, everyone. I am Leah Huckala. I use she or they pronouns. Either is fine with me. I have lived in Orono, I believe, for 4 years with my wife and my almost 3-year-old daughter. I haven't lived with her for 5 years or 4 years, but my daughter is goes to the sharing place, which I think is in Old Town technically, but we very much see ourselves as members of the community, and that really sparked my interest in joining the town council. I honestly haven't been involved in any kind of community organization. I've really dedicated my passion and my service to the universities that I've been involved in. So I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I was very much heavily involved in the University of Minnesota diversity and equity committees. My research is, well, I'm a faculty member at the University of Maine, so my research is actually focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion in admissions and in recruiting, and most recently looking at the ways in which diversity and equity discourses are incorporated or not into faculty hiring processes. So I come to this committee as, I suppose, an expert in some issues related to diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging, although that belonging piece seems to be a newer addition to the discourse around DEI. But really, primarily, I'm interested because I identify as a member of the LGBTQ population. I am genderqueer, and I think that it's important to have diverse perspectives and representation on committees that have a voice. And so my hope is that I can bring my voice to this space and to be a representative for people who are minoritized in this community. I do not snack at Circle K, but if I were to, I would get beef jerky.
Hi everyone, sorry for being late. I teach right before this and rest over. Brian Pittman, he, him pronouns. I live over across the street, not across the street directly, but across the road on Old Kelly from the country club. What got me interested was, so I'm a sociology professor at Oklahoma University, but I'm not here as a representative of that university, so I want to make that clear. But I'm a sociology professor, and DEI the issues are something that I have certainly been interested in at the campus level, at the community level, and so this seemed like a good opportunity to apply some of that experience that I have to the local community, because I'm all about trying to tie what I do at the university to the community and figuring out how to make those things work collaboratively. Favorite Circle K snack is they actually have their own banana nut bread that is really good. I think it is actually Circle K branded, so highly recommend it. Never thought I would say that, but it's very good.
My name is Emily Roth. My pronouns are they, she. Been in Orono for about 6 years. I'm a recent graduate of the university. I work at the bike shop. Somebody knows the bike shop. Let's see, I live on Pleasant Street, just down the road there. At the university, I studied forestry and gender studies, and I weaseled my way into combining them with my my cumulative research was about gendered language in forestry and how that affects minority genders. And forestry is is a field dominated by men, and that was something that I had no idea coming into it. I should have perhaps figured it out, but it was something that was very jarring, and it kind of shoved me into the world of DEI. I served on a few committees through the university, but I am very young. I don't have that much experience with things outside of gender and sexuality. I'm very interested in hearing those perspectives. I'm a member of the queer community. Very proud to live in and work in Orono. Yeah, I love it here. It's great. I want to make it a better place.
Okay. Hi, I'm Carlos. I'm realizing I'm probably the youngest person here.
Hooray! We're glad you're here.
I am a freshman during my second semester at the university. I'm actually originally from Mexico, so I snuck my way in here. I'm currently a resident at Knox Hall in the university, and I wanted to join the committee because a teacher told me that it could be a good opportunity for me considering how much I put DI into my writings. Thanks for your class. And B, because in high school down at Hebron Academy, in about the county of Hebron actually, I had actually also participated as a DEI member of my community as our GSTA president and as one of the student body proctors that was also in charge of helping with DEI. And I actually got my the award of social justice at graduation. I'm also planning on minoring in women, gender, and sexuality studies next semester. And I'm currently studying psychology. I use he, him pronouns. And if I'm being honest, I've never really gone to Circle K that often.
I love the sunflower seeds.
I love sunflower seeds. But if I have to snack on something, I'll probably buy like a liter of liter because I use a metric system. A liter of ginger ale or grape flavored soda. And an entire big bag of Takis or wave Takis. Yes. Or kettle chip jalapeno chips. So yeah, that's my go-to.
Fabulous. All right. Well, thank you all. So glad you're here. And up next on our agenda is something that's vaguely titled Organizing Discussion, which is intentionally left pretty open-ended because once again, the purpose of this group is to be enabling new ideas and enabling some bubbling up of whatever it is that the folks who are involved and others who may join later on along the way are excited to bring by way of enthusiasm and new ideas. But some things that we can talk about under this category that immediately occur to me are what are we each kind of excited to do and be part of? We could do some brainstorming around that. We could also talk about how this group wants to kind of organize itself with regard to leadership roles and sort of facilitation of future meetings. And we could also talk about whether this group wants to do some more active recruitment and bring some more folks on board. We had, as I alluded to earlier, the town council sort of decided to intentionally seat about half of a full community because in our, the ad hoc committee that existed before this one of their recommendations for building a full committee is that we try to bring together a group of people that's at least half BIPOC or Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And in the applicant pool that we got of folks applying to be on this committee, we didn't end up with that many BIPOC applicants. And so we're definitely, in a position of being like, well, I guess we didn't succeed at that broad-based recruitment, but that doesn't mean that we can't in the future. Who else might we invite who might like to be on this committee? And so there's an opportunity there to be sort of growing this group. And those are some of my ideas for sub-bullets within our organization discussion. Does anything jump out to any of you as like, oh, we should talk about that first?
Well, I recognize a few things in the committee charge from this is my memory of a couple of years ago. And the key word in the number one would be the feedback, that this group would exist to provide a channel for feedback so that the broad-based constituencies that you mentioned really do have a chance to be listened to. Remember that. And number two, kind of advocacy when the town of Orono with the capital T is considering policy and ordinances, bringing into those considerations what we've heard in the listening sessions and trying to be strategic so that before something goes into effect, the impact is considered. Number three, identifying ways for more people other than traditionally involved people to participate in the governance process. So I just lift up those purposes. And I think how do those purposes call us into whatever kind of functioning unit we can be, and how do those purposes help us become a bigger circle, or, you know, deepen who's at the table. Yeah, I think when we all said yes to this, we didn't really have any idea who else would be here, right? And I don't even think we had this at the time. Just, are you interested?
Yeah. Did everyone get a chance to review this draft charge, or excuse me, not draft anymore, formally approved this charge for a DEI committee that the town council to approve?
I did, but it's been a couple of weeks.
It's been a couple of weeks. Yeah, feel free to glance it over again. And
can I ask a question about
go for it.
Should I ask over email? Again, there's like 10 different things here, but one thing I don't see that's often in this discourse is class, and I didn't know if that was a conscious choice, because obviously that intersects with all of these, but I don't know if that's an easy fix or not, but I did just notice that here.
Yeah, I don't believe that was a conscious omission. So thanks for picking up on that as an important intersecting potential piece. And I think baked into this is certainly a philosophy that this group and future members, as it grows and evolves, can feel a sense of empowerment in adding to this charge in dialogue with the town council and helping us sort of hone a mission and a path forward for how to do community engagement around DEI issues.
I guess the other category I think about is mental illness and the intersection of mental illness with socioeconomic status, homelessness even. I guess I'd throw in on top of that neurodiversity, given that I have a daughter who is not neurotypical. And to me, the issue there is about belonging and how do we embrace differences.
Can you say that last part again?
Embracing people who are not neurotypical, and how do we create places where neurotypical with people with differences like that feel like they belong, feel like they're connected. I think my daughter does in so many ways, but it's always something I think to pay attention to.
All right, so I've taken it upon myself to lightly scribe some things on a board, because that helps me feel like, oh, we're doing a brainstorming. Here's what I got so far. So we're starting to create a bucket under additional aspects of diversity that are maybe not reflected in this charge, but could be part of the work that you all want to undertake. Is there anything else that falls under that bucket worthy of cataloging at the moment?
I don't know if this falls under that bucket, but I just, one of the things that I would love to see be part of the dialogue here is how do we deal with those in the community that do not accept differences? And having just come back from Florida and seeing a football-sized Confederate flag hanging at the exit ramp of Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, I know there have been places in the community where rainbow flags have been removed and taken out where they had been displayed before. So I guess I think it's a real struggle for what's the work of the town, the work of the citizens to both advocate, but also educate. seems like a huge task that I don't know how to begin to address.
I really value that, and I think it's good that this group can start diving into an acknowledgement of the fact that this kind of work is inherently challenging, and sometimes being able to name the challenges and just acknowledge that they exist is helpful. So yeah, I've put tolerance of intolerance ? Under a challenge related to this kind of work, which it hopefully articulates succinctly what you were getting at a little bit.
Thing that I'm really interested in pursuing is ways that we can leverage more of a partnership with the university, because there is so much professional development, education, workshops being offered by faculty and staff at the university. So I don't think, you know, rather than like burdening our committee with doing the work, how can we strengthen partnerships with individuals who are the experts, who are dedicated to the work, and perhaps like sponsoring events that are within the community, so individuals within the community feel like, oh, it's not a university event, it's a community event that's being, you know, partnered with the university. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I do think that there are opportunities.
Is it just me, or has it always been this like historical kind of divide between the university and the town of Orono? Like, not maybe not like formally like the town, right? But like the people within the town, who obviously are a mix of people that go to the university, but are also people that don't go to the university. So I didn't know if I feel like working at the university, there's a disconnect, and I don't know if I'm the only one that kind of feels that or not.
I think there is. I mean, I had 32 years at the university. I know the town has made efforts for sure. And being part of the Division of Student Affairs, Robert Dana has made efforts, and the multicultural office there has made many efforts. But I think there continues to be not a divide necessarily, but certain tension around that. And I think some of that is, I know the town has made great efforts to put up banners welcoming the new students. And but in my time here, like when I first came here, I thought there was much more of a town gown split than there is now. And a lot of that was socioeconomic.
There clearly is a split. When you look at something as simple as voting, the pushback that council gets when there is no space in town big enough for the community to vote at. So the university and the town worked out this relationship to vote on campus. Part of the reason we push and advertise absentee voting here so heavily is because we have contingent of the community who said, I will not vote before I go vote on campus. And that's kind of a sad commentary, but accurate.
Been at meetings where the issue of even just the physical separation, the river between the university and here creates a physical distance that's hard to cross, hard to figure that out. If there were more businesses in Orono on College Ave or Park Street, then that might make a big difference in terms of, in other college towns I've lived in, it's much more of a blended sort of thing. Makes it difficult. So a challenging thing for us to think about and talk about.
Well, at this table, we have a lot of assets in that direction, I guess. I mean, alumni, current student, 2 professors. I adjuncted there. You've been there for decades, but aren't currently, is that right?
I retired in August, yes.
So in a way, maybe that's what this is this is leveraging some of the pieces of experience or knowledge toward this conversation in the town. I like the idea that if we ever have to wonder though, as a unit, are we more educating or more advocating? We can probably identify others that can do education pretty easily and are doing education, and make use of that rather than duplicate.
Support those efforts.
Sonia, you had mentioned the idea of recruiting a few more members, particularly from BIPOC populations. Mm-hmm. I wonder if we might, as an action item, individually spend some time having conversations with any folks that we know in the community who identify within that population to see if they would be interested in joining. So just each of us, if we know someone, just bringing it up and saying, we would love for you to consider. It's important to have those voices at the table. Just a suggestion. Yeah. Doesn't have to be something that we do, but I appreciated that you brought up that limitation of our committee right now and opportunity.
Can people who aren't residents of the town participate?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So as town council, we went back and forth on this a little bit, and we have written in the draft charge that preference is given to residents of town, but anyone who works, studies, like owns a business or worships here in Orono is, eligible for consideration, since all those folks are, members of the fabric of our community in various ways. And that was done to try to ensure that, for example, someone who worships at the Islamic Center or a member of the Penobscot Nation who maybe lives on Indian Island but comes to school here or something like that would be eligible to be part. So we tried to make it expansive, and hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I know someone that lives in Old Town approach, and I know someone who lives in Veazey who I have approached, but he's going to be leaving the area. Mike Scott, some of you may know Mike Scott.
Oh yeah.
He's going to be retiring and moving to New York this summer. But even if we were here for a few meetings, that might be a good thing.
I think that'd be lovely. Okay. So great.
Yeah, and even just brainstorming people we know. I have a couple of neighbors that are native, and I will speak for them too. Yeah, and serving on a committee isn't everyone's jam, but hopefully we could develop within this group a committee culture that would feel inclusive and wouldn't be too tedious of meetings to sit through and. Talking, so
for sure. Yeah, especially anyone who hasn't chimed in yet, but had either reflections about reflecting a little bit on the draft charge for this committee, either things that really speak to you as things you're excited about, or opportunities for this committee to go beyond or add dimensions to this, as some folks already have chimed in with.
Is it possible to gain access to the data that was collected with the ad hoc survey, just so that we have an understanding of?
That was never turned over to the town.
It may still be possible to track it down though. It's a great question, and I have no idea. But Malcolm, I wonder if you're in communication with folks from the previous ad hoc committee and might be able to explore getting access to that data. It's like
at the surface level, at least there was public reporting with 10 recommendations that came in. But that's like the overall report. And then there was data, which we did our best to parse. So there would be parsing and then something. I would probably have it actually.
If you want to let me know, I can reach out to see if we can get it. They did not. So one of the things to consider is if you are appointed by town council, you're a town official, even as a community member. And so a document that you have in your possession that has to do with whatever you were appointed for is a public record. And I think they had some concerns about the survey data making its way into the public record because the community is so small. They didn't want it to be identifiable to folks, is my general recollection. So the only thing that I have seen is the parsed data, the graphs and charts that you see in the report. But
Has this group seen the report though?
The report is online, and I think I directed people to that website in an email. I might be dreaming that.
But also, having seen a report some months back versus having it fresh in the brain and ready to apply to the task at hand might be different things. So would it be a useful potential, like for next meeting, for this group to look at that old report and come ready to kind of discuss what that suggests to us in terms of next steps? Okay, opportunity, read that old report. Great. Easy next step.
Would it be helpful if I sent another link?
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
This body will probably come back to a similar question in terms of gathering feedback or doing any listening instrument. The question that formed the gathering process, the survey data, which later informed who had access to it, was how to make people feel safe.
Right.
Like, so if we were the body holding a listening session tonight with this racial makeup, are non-white people going to come and be heard by us? So there were questions in terms of who would feel safe responding to the survey. So it ended up being a totally anonymous survey, like nobody will see this data. But that's not always the answer.
So in one here, it does say anything related to the committee's work are public records. So that sort of creates a law.
So can we be effective with our listening?
Yeah.
It all belongs to the.
Yeah. I mean, so I guess one thought that I have related to that is there are, you know, if like our goal is let's hear about challenges that people have in the community through the mechanism of a listening session, that is one important way to be doing outreach and learning what's important to people. There's also like on less of a problems focused end of the spectrum, but more of a like just community engagement end of the spectrum. We could also, I don't know, plan an event that's like a fun celebrative thing that could be, I don't know, could draw folks in and be building relationships, but doesn't, it doesn't focus on a challenge. It just focuses rather on just straight up community engagement, which isn't to say don't do both. It's just
kind of a question for me as I'm flagging like the function that you pointed out, number one, like how does a body amplify and advocate if there's no, like it's already all out there. Like you have to, if you wanted to give some painful or critical feedback with this, you'd have to come to a public forum to do it. And how does that, do we not have the ombudsperson function in that layout?
So another potential way to navigate that is, you know, there's partnerships that you were talking about, Leah, and thinking about the ways in which a team of researchers, a mix of faculty, students, staff could potentially do something that's similar to this. Of course, I don't know if that gives us access to the actual raw data still, probably not, because that would still be public record. That could be something to also explore. As a partnership with the university, like doing something, you know, building on what was done and reported on from 2 years ago.
I've written under potential opportunities. Feel free to revise this if I haven't crystallized it very accurately. review ombudsperson / grievance functionality and ability of this group. Just sort of like what are the strictures around things being a public record and what is in town ordinances, such that kind of if somebody does come to you with like, here's my experience of a thing that happened to me in town, and you all are members of this body, you know kind of what your role in confidentiality, sort of your strictures about confidentiality are as a town appointee, I guess. And we have some familiarity with how the ordinances interface with you folks. That seems like a useful fact-finding thing for you all to know.
Is there an actual reference to an ombudsperson you're saying, or you're saying there isn't one?
It means it's a big word. Ombudsperson. I don't actually know what a technical definition is either. Does someone with a...
Well, no, I was just wondering if it was actually, if you were saying it was listed in the committee function or it was not listed.
It's not listed, but yeah, does someone have a good definition for that we can share? Because not everyone's familiar with the word.
Like an intermediary?
I think it's more like an advocate, though. Or are they supposed to be neutral?
A neutral resolver.
A neutral resolver. Okay, thanks for Googling that.
An ombudsperson is a neutral and independent person who helps resolve complaints and conflicts in a fair and respectful way.
Great.
And it used to be an actual position at universities called ombudsman.
Right.
In the affirmative action legislation, it was usually, okay, individuals are going to run into huge structural things.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing the right thing to one by one have various people integrate the setting. But when they run into challenges, how are they going to make it? We're going to make an office of an ombudsperson to come alongside here. They're concerned, get them a little further, get some resolutions. So my mind went to that probably in thinking about structural issues and the purpose of a listening committee. Like, why have a committee to gather feedback if everybody can give feedback themselves?
Yep.
There's kind of a hint of it there that there might be a role for someone to come alongside.
Yeah, is it a role? It's funny, I wrote down this a little before. We were talking about what kind of mechanism could be created to provide a safe place for citizens and or staff of the town to discuss issues of experiencing exclusion, discrimination, or feeling unsafe. So is it a mechanism or a person, or any mechanism like this can be abused, of course, also, but anyway, it may be a good challenge for us to think through those.
All right, so I'm not really enjoying the sort of free form and kind of bubbling up nature of our conversation. It's working great for me. I'm curious how other people are feeling about it, and if you would prefer like more active facilitation or less active facilitation. Fine with this conversation. Open to feedback. Okay, ish, fine. All right. One question that I have, and feel free to say no, but I'm curious if this group wants to have some kind of working group norms. The reason that I thought of it is because when I work with students or groups at the Wilson Center, we typically do come up with kind of like, here's our group norms about how we're going to be together. And an example of a group norm might be like, there are no silly questions if you have a question or you hear a word you don't know the answer to. And we just, had a situation in which it's like, that was a big jargon word. And it's just, we shouldn't assume that we all know what that means, given that most of us definitely didn't. So we could take some time to make group norms, or we could not. What would folks like to do?
I was thinking, my initial reaction is that maybe the work of the committee.
Sure.
Perhaps without you.
Great.
But that's, there are certain feminist principles. There are certain principles that I've used over the years, systems-oriented approaches. We're finding ways to join on similarities, and how do we create a pattern of communication where we recognize and integrate both similarities and differences. So my first response, and forgive me, I've run so many staff meetings in my life that I'm very comfortable talking. I'm also like white and older and male and all of that stuff too. But my question would be, I'm curious what's in the silence. Because often silence, it's like there's really important things that just don't get said. So how do we create a context where everybody feels safe to talk? And that goes to your question now, right? What are the norms, right?
Yeah.
Yep, talking through guidelines that maybe address that.
I don't know how many people in the town of Orono might not be native English speakers, but I think that could be something that could affect it. Because I know that from like experience, that sometimes people who can't necessarily speak English as well as others feel very self-conscious about it and end up not talking about their issues unless they can talk about it in a language that they're comfortable with. Right now, I know that my first language is not English, it's Spanish actually. But I've also been lucky enough that I learned English at the age of 4. So I can mostly talk without an accent, I consider. But yeah, language barriers can definitely be something that could affect it.
Yeah, that's a great dimension to add.
It's a great example to a wonderful thing in the silence. So thank you so much for coming forward.
For tonight, if we just hit a few more meetings to schedule and then did a lot more recruitment and invitation of others, maybe it gives us a chance later to come to our group norms when who we are is, you know, still viable. So
And still coalescing.
still coming together. Proposal.
So is there a thought about how often this would meet from your perspective?
I think as often as you would like. I would suggest that any more than monthly gets a little bit difficult to schedule in a room. And based on scheduling this meeting, I would also guess it would be difficult to schedule in your schedules. But I think the town council was really clear that they wanted it to be productive in a way that worked for this group. I have a calendar here. If people have kind of ideas, I can kind of look ahead and see when. I think it's important that it's in this room because we have the technology to be able to get it where it needs to go. And also it's where people are used to coming for public meetings, and might also make it easier to come for formal public meetings if they've been here for a committee. But that's just an opinion.
It's a good point.
I can be swayed.
I like that idea.
Well, I'm having spent a lot of time with groups. It's difficult meeting only just once a month to figure out how to coalesce and come together. So I think, and maybe it does mean let's take a month and see who we can recruit, and then come back together and sort of go from that point. But I guess it's my opinion that meeting weekly for some period of time might be very functional in terms of the development of ideas.
I don't know if I can make meeting work for my life. I have a daughter at home. Maybe
I just threw it out there. So.
Yeah. I know, I'm throwing it out there that if I was child free and had a different life, it would be a different story. But
right, there are restraining forces for each of us.
I was under the assumption, and perhaps wrongly so, that it would be monthly meetings. which is what I think I'm willing to commit to. But I'm also, you know, just one member that has been elected. So.
You may feel the same.
During the summer, not as much. During the semester, it would, yeah, it would definitely vary. But yeah, I was also under that same belief it was once a month, but I do understand, I also know the difficulty it can be to figure things out as we kind of go. And so I don't know if there's like I don't know what the asynchronous kind of commitment can be. And of course, the public record stuff that obviously goes into that I'm not familiar with. But maybe there's an I figured there was going to be asynchronous components. Somebody's got to organize the agenda and discussions around what goes on the agenda, what gets prioritized, reading stuff before we go. So I don't know if that is something we can work out as part of establishing the meeting schedule or not, but that might be something to think about. It's like, okay, if we do once a month, then what's the expectation asynchronously so that we can have clear outlines for people that we go to recruit, so that when we go to recruit, we don't say, yeah, it might be once a month, but also there's an asynchronous expectation of whatever hours a week or however we want to quantify it or not quantify it.
This time worked for everyone, Tuesday at 5.
Doesn't for me. I am in Augusta till 5 on Tuesdays. So I'm either gonna stay there and be on Zoom so I can do a 5 to whatever this is. Or I don't know, do it on my phone driving. But I won't be able on a regular basis to make a 5 o'clock on Tuesday. Is it possible to do the same day, but later time? Yes.
Like later, what time?
7, or after bedtime. How late could you meet?
Ideally, I just in terms of my life being home by 7:30 is because I teach 2 nights a week, and so I'm already teaching 5 to 7:30, and I need to be home.
Yeah. Is there any other night at 5 o'clock that works?
When would the next meeting be? Because if we're thinking like after May 1st, then I've got a little bit more flexibility myself in terms of being able to start at 5 o'clock. Obviously, like Tuesday, Thursday, now until May 1st, I teach until 4:45. So it would be rushing every.
I mean, do we have to do Tuesdays every month?
We could do,
or could we vary it?
So
if it were 6 o'clock, that gets you home in time.
I could do 6.
So if I could get away from Augusta by 4, something, I could get here by 6. So maybe at Tuesday at 6 o'clock.
Carlos was going to say something.
I was gonna say that since on international student, I might have issues coming to meetings in person, considering I'm gonna be in another country for the summer.
Oh,
Because I do have a mother that loves me, that will love me back home. I will try to commit to whatever time we do, but at least by Zoom. However, starting in the fall, if we do start to vary, that will the schedule will have to change because of my classes. So depending on my classes, I might not be able to make it in person. I might have to like sit in the class and like have my ear on Zoom secretly and just like texting in the chat.
I love that you would surreptitiously cut classes.
I would. Depending on the class, I would.
The idea of reviewing kind of seasonally is something that we at the town are really used to because classes change and schedules change. So I think that's easy. I think if we pick a specific night, that's easier for me to say, no, the council chamber is not available on X day. Based on the feedback that we got, I think we had some people that for a variety of reasons were feeling much more comfortable being on Zoom. And so the plan that we have talked with council all along is that everybody can be on Zoom as they need. The town rules would require one person to be in council chamber and staff to run stuff. I also understand communicating is often, at least for many, much easier in person. So I think that's flexible as to what people need.
So Monday night's not possible here, and
Monday night is really hard because council kind of has taken that for
So
its business.
Tuesday night's a possibility. Is Wednesday?
Tuesday at 6.
Tuesday at 6. Is Wednesday a possibility?
Not for me.
And Thursday?
I teach in the fall on Wednesday nights. Or Wednesdays and Thursdays.
Yeah. So if we're thinking about
Yeah.
summer scheduling, if we assume that the next meeting would be in May after the semester wraps up, are things a little bit more flexible? Would Wednesday nights during the summer be a possibility?
Not for me.
No.
No.
Oh.
Thursday is, Wednesday is not.
So
And
Tuesday
as
at
is
6.
Tuesday.
Tuesdays work the best.
Tuesday at 6, still a winning time. Looking for
Tuesday at
sort of
6.
full buy-in.
Yes.
Welcome.
Yes.
Okay.
Go.
Tuesday at 6, sold.
Well, and maybe we need to do one at a time. I don't know if that things might change, right?
Mhm.
But the next Tuesday at 6 would be May 8th, or would it be?
So it'd be May 9th if you followed the same schedule, but there's nothing that says that you have to stay on this week. We begged people to have flexibility for this one to bring everybody together.
Yeah.
Um,
If we could bump it to May 16th, that would be a big help for me. I will be away May 9th. But you all can meet in my absence as well. We can designate another council person to come. Be liaise for that day.
May 16th works for me.
16th?
Yes.
I'll make it work.
I'm gonna
Yep.
put it right in council calendar.
It's at 6 o'clock.
So could we talk for just a minute about the logistics of agendas and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So my role to this committee is to staff it, which means to answer questions, to know in advance. For example, Jeff Lowe is joining us tonight. He is the Director of Public Safety, but he's also a member of the town's internal DEI team. He's one of the co-leaders. So my job would be, if there were specifics you had questions about, I would make sure that the appropriate staff person was here. But it's also to create, not the words, but the actual agenda, get it posted, get it put out in a legal way, notify the community, to have the clearinghouse of information to ask questions to the whole group. And as long as it comes back through my email, we will have managed the public record chain that is required. Talking amongst yourselves individually via email on this topic is subject. You subject yourselves to FOA requests and searches if people don't think you've given up the information. So one way that we solve that when we have community groups is by simply putting either me, Sonia, both of us on your emails, or if we're generating a group email that goes out, it will automatically go through our system. So it will get captured and held in accordance with archival. If that is an issue for people that you identify, we can look at getting orono.org email addresses for folks to use for this purpose. Right now, we are out of our, literally, we had to wait for one counselor to get done to give the new counselor the email address because we've maxed out the number of addresses that we get at this service level. But if it's important to you, then we would figure out a way to make that happen.
What's FOA?
Freedom of Access Act. It's a Maine statute. I think a lot of people are aware of the Freedom of Information Act, which is a federal statute. It does not cover the state. But that is the right to know law. And I can send you all sorts of information if you would like about that. But it is what I referenced earlier about public document, which can be electronic, it can be paper, it can be a recording that has to do with what you were appointed for. So this committee would be subject to distribution if requested.
Thanks.
You are welcome.
So on the topic of agendas for next time, do you think it would be helpful for us while we're together to collectively identify some agenda items that we want to be sure we revisit next time?
Excellent idea.
Great. I would accept nominations from anything on these boards or in your brains.
Recruitment ideas for new community members.
Recruitments. All right.
If we're not actively doing that.
Between now and then.
And so the sort of process for getting appointed to this committee is, I think that town council would officially sort of vote on and say, vote on new members and sort of approve to appoint them to the committee, which is not too arduous a thing to do, but it does require a step. But in the interim, I think it's probably a fine working framework, and anyone here who knows better can correct me if I'm wrong, if we have a friend who's interested in potentially joining and wants to come check it out and be part of the conversation, community members are welcome to come be part of the conversation. Hi, Jeff, you have anything to say, community member friend? Cool. And so we could, have them come join. We could move those chairs closer so they can come sit by the tables and just, sort of welcome them in an unofficial way, pending a formal appointment. Does that make sense does that sound fine to everyone? Great. So have conversations with friends. We can invite them to the next meeting if they're interested in being involved. Do you want to follow up on data from before?
Review past, because you'll send us the link.
Yes.
To talk about it together would be good. Reviewing the 2021 work.
Read the old report, right? So you can look at that as homework for next time. Is there anything else that feels, I guess one other agenda item I have to think about for next time, if we feel ready at that point, is a discussion on who wants to facilitate or chair or co-chair, or what's the sort of structure of leadership of this group, and or how do we want leadership to work such that it's not by default me doing the talking. I'd love to upend that power structure as quickly as possible.
I'm good with that.
Great. Would would anyone be interested in taking on sort of a facilitation role for our next meeting, or do we not even need that, given that we're a small enough group that I think has pretty successfully co-facilitated this meeting?
I think it also makes sense to wait if we recruit a few additional individuals, if they want to step into the role.
Great.
Potentially.
Sure. Okay, so we've got for next time kind of a three-part agenda, which is part prep work for and part next meeting, which is have conversations and grow this committee with a priority toward inclusion of more BIPOC members. Read the report from the last DEI committee and come prepared to kind of discuss and dig into next steps that suggests, and discuss leadership structure and who would facilitate further meetings. Yes?
I was thinking too, understanding the role, your role, and understanding Sophie's role.
Sure.
Yeah. Clear about
clarifying role of council liaison. Council and staff liaison.
Last agenda might be create the agenda for the next meeting.
Yeah, such as you're doing right now.
But a slight follow-up to clarifying your role, counselor, and Sophie's role is clarifying the data question as well of like what are the possibilities, right? Because obviously there's the concerns of making that data, you know, having that data go through the public record and then making it publicly available. We don't want that because that's not, you know, that's not generative to anonymity, right? So thinking of ways to, and maybe the only way is the partnership with the university. I don't know, but are there confidentiality things that can be employed so that we can actually either analyze that data or do something similar to that? We can actually see the raw data too. And maybe that's not possible, and that's good to know as well.
Do we want to have that as an agenda item for next time, or have it in the brain as a do some research on before then?
Just a quick update of like
quick update.
Like
okay.
2 to 3 minutes. Like if the answer is no, it shouldn't take that long to, I mean, we don't need the explanation. If it's not possible, it's not possible.
I should have said when we sat down, we're missing one member. Michael Williams is going to join us. He had a death in the family. So he says he will watch the recording and come prepared and is excited to be part of it.
Awesome. Hello, Michael, from those of us here. We're sorry to have missed you. Our hearts go out.
I have a question. Do we want to get one more meeting on the books beyond just this 1 month? So maybe schedule something for June. We're looking 4 weeks out from May 16th. It would be June 13th.
Yes, that works. Sorry, I just had to do a little computation here.
That's great.
I support that idea. I just not sure what.
I mean, we can reschedule it or change it depending on when, if people come and they're like Tuesdays won't work, but I think it might make sense.
Yeah.
Just to have something.
Yeah, my travel plans for the summer are fully formed. So.
Right, mine either.
We decide to put the 13th temporarily or not?
Yeah,
sorry.
June
13th.
Yeah.
Okay, temporary. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Needs to be changed.
I understand we might need to change it. The invite that you're going to get is going to make it sound like it's a real meeting, because if I write hold on it, sometimes it gets erased. So we're going to make it look official. And Leah, you said 7:30 was kind of a hard end.
For me, yes. If we could do 6 to 7.
All right, friends. Do we all feel complete for tonight?
Any public comment we need?
Is there any public comments?
No, but I want to thank Sonia for stepping up to be council liaison. My name is Jeff Wingard. I'm a counselor with Sonia, and I'm really excited for the 2 years I've been on council. I'm really excited to see this process grow. So I'm thankful for all of you and for Sonia for stepping up.
Echo the thanks to everyone involved. Really appreciate it.
Nice job.
Yes, thank you. Perfect.
Go team. And we're out of here early. Woohoo. That's the should be good.
I get to go to dinner.
You get to go to dinner.
I don't want to get it.
When you said your summer takes you back to Mexico, when is that?
May 5th. So as soon as the doors close, I'm out of here.
Soon.
All right.
The only issue is what do I do with my stuff?
No. Yeah.
Because I know that my old school, or at least my high school, because half of the student body was like international and out of state, they just hold it on as storage and then they just assign it to your new room. I have no idea how it's gonna do it. I might have to end up looking into like storage units in Bangor if I don't learn anything. I have to ask the office of
There is one in Orono.
Oh, there's one in Orono? I only knew about one in Bangor.
Yeah, it's right by the local the store that just opened across the mall.
I've only been to like,
Yeah.
I've only
So
been to
nice.
2 stores in town of Orono.
This is my
Very close to
meeting.
campus.
How much stuff do you have? Are you talking like a couple of topus or are you talking like,
It's been a day.
you know, cubic yards of things? Cubic yards.
Were they
of
better
things.
in person or
Yeah.
Zoom? I find Zoom, yeah, I find Zoom meetings awful.
Last year, I did all the looking and shifted over with.
The day, and then everything else
We did not
was
like it because I did
on
not.
Zoom, and in person, I will travel.
And we ended up paying like $1,000 in storage. and-
Agreed. So much better.
That's a lot.
I do appreciate having access, because, but
They made a line to make August. So yeah, I'd rather not do that.
Yeah, well, I would rather you not have to do that again.
Wish that,
For sure.
So it was like 8 boxes, give or take, that I have to do. But we're like, it's like our brain. All like this, why I can we